Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to answer any question you get regarding return on advertising spend using SQL. In the United States in 2024, on average, it costs about 217 cents to acquire a customer. As you know, many businesses who have an online presence spend huge marketing budgets driving installs to their websites and apps through paid channels such as Facebook and other mediums for digital advertising. So in order to track this responsibly, a key question is, if I acquire a customer today for $2.17, when do I recoup that expense? And if we look at the analysis behind me, it's about 3 months. And I will show you how to build this exact same cumulative revenue per installed chart using MySQL and using an installs and revenue table. Okay, so here we are in MySQL. And I'll show you our installs table. Now let's just grab the very first install instance per customer. So this is just going to return the very first install date for each customer we have. Okay, there we are. So if you know anything about me, I'm not a huge fan of built-in functions like getDate or currentDate. In order to protect my downstream reporting, what I do is I typically use the max date value in our SQL tables. And I'm going to do that now using a window function. We're going to calculate the max install date from this table and use it in some of our future logic operations. You can just call this subselect A. So here we are using the max window function to return the max install date value and scribing that value onto every row in our SQL table. And again, if you look at our over clause, there are no parameters in here, and the reason why is because we just want to take a straight max. We don't want to group it or dimensionalize it by anything. We don't want the max install date by zip code, for example. We just want the straight max install date value. I'm going to give you a preview of just a random 10 records. Okay, great. So right now the granularity of our data is a customer, their install date, and the max install date value, which is August 24th, which is yesterday. Again, the date of this recording is August 25th, 2024, and this is pretty customary where your data sources or your SQL tables in your data warehouse will be through the prior day. And in this case, today's date again is August 25th, 2024. And our data is through yesterday's date, August 24th. Okay, so here is what we are going to do next. For every customer and every install date, we need to bring across additional dates that mark month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, all the way up until the current date, but not including future dates. So I will show you how we accomplish this. It will be through a join to a dim date table. So this is just a table with one column full of dates. If you don't have this in your data warehouse, definitely take your data engineer out to lunch and beg them to put one in your EDW. They're really fantastic. Okay, the first thing we want to do is we're only interested in dates that are 30 days from the install date, 60, 90, so on and so forth. So we can kind of limit the data returned in this join by adding this one condition and say where b.date is greater than a Actually, let's clean this up a little bit. I want to enclose everything into another subselect, so we're going to call this installs. And this is just for organization, so let's make a few changes here and get ready for the join. Okay, so now we are ready. So we will do a left join from our installs table to the dim date table. We can call this dates. So we have two tables, installs and dates, right? The first thing is we're only interested in returning dates that are basically divisible by 30, right? So 30 days from the install date, 60 days from the install date, 90 and so forth, right? So again, what we can do is we can filter some of the data returned in the join to save up on resources. So we're going to do that now and say that we want the date to, for sure, be greater than the install date. And we also want to make sure we don't bring across any future dates. So the dates.date value has to be less than or equal to the max install date that we got from that window function. Okay, and here comes the fun part. We only want to bring across dates that are divisible by 30. So install date plus 30, plus 60, plus 90. So I'll show you how to do that now. It's pretty fun. We're going to do a date diff. From all the date values in our date table with our install date. And that's going to return some sort of integer defined by days. So it could be the difference between this date and the install date is 17 days or 24 days or 60 days, which is what we want. So in order to only return what we want, here's what we're going to do. So right now, this is returning a value that's difference in days, but we only want stuff that's divisible by 30. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a mod. So we're going to say divide this by 30 and make sure the remainder is 0. So this will ensure we bring across date values that are 30, 60, 90 plus from the customer's install date. And what we're going to do is we're going to sum revenue between those date intervals to basically rebuild that same histogram. We don't need that. Here are the dates that are divisible by 30. And remember, the first date that's going to be brought across is install date plus 30. So if you're a newer install that installed, say, yesterday, you don't have a fully baked 30 days. So 30 days have not elapsed since you installed just yesterday. So this statement here is going to drop those new installs. And this analysis and chart is only going to include installs that installed at least 30 or more days ago. So this is a pretty intensive join, so let's save the query results into a table. So we're running this now, and remember, these two statements up here allow us to run and rerun our code without encountering any issues. What it's doing is it's dropping the table if it already exists and inserting new records after rebuilding that same table. If we don't do this, essentially we will be trying to create a table that already exists, and that will cause an error. Okay, it looks like our data is ready. Again, this is a pretty big table, so it's having to deal with a lot of records and then also ordering all those records. And what we should see is the customer, the install date, and we should see those values repeated for a variable number of rows, and then see the install date plus 30, 60, 90 date value. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to sum revenue between those date intervals. Let me reduce the limit and see if we can get a view of these records. Okay, fantastic. So here we go. We have the exact same customer ID value, same customer, same install date, and then you see these dates here, right? Those are the dates that are 30, 60, 90, 120 from the install date. But they go all the way up from the install date through yesterday's date, so no future dates. And what we're going to do is we're going to sum revenue between these intervals. What I'm going to do first is add 2 columns, and they will be user-friendly columns that'll just be easy for us on the eyes to understand what we're doing. Now, what we are doing with this is we want to know what the difference in days is between the install date and the date value. And it's always going to be divisible by 30. And it'll return an integer like 1, 2, 3. And it'll help us understand what month we are on. So if it says 1, then we know we're in month 1. If the output is 2, we know we're in month 2. If it's 3, we know in month 3. But to help out with that, especially visually, we're going to add this other column. This will literally say month and then the actual integer. Let's see what this looks like. This is awesome. Okay, great. It says month 7 here, month 2, month 1, fantastic. So month 1 will be 30 days of revenue, month 2 will be 60 days of revenue, fantastic. Now we are ready to join to our revenue table. So this is our revenue table, fact player revenue. And we're going to join on customer ID first. And we want the revenue purchase date to be greater than or equal to the install date. That makes sense, because you can purchase on the day that you install a product. And we want the purchase date less than that month marker. It could be here. And we want to aggregate revenue. So let's group this. And again, let's get rid of these column aliases. Not permitted in the group by. We can call this subselect final. And we want to aggregate up to these columns right here before we take this into Excel and build our histogram. We want a count of installs. and a summation of their revenue. This is also an intensive query, so we should save it into a table. We can call it installs final. And we are successfully running this. And again, it's going to output the perfect table for you because you'll be able to tell basically how much your customers are worth or your installs are worth by X number of months after their install date. Okay, this finished running. Okay, this outputted exactly what we wanted, right? A summation of revenue, installs, and basically the month since install. So let's take this over to Excel and finish this off. Okay, so here we are. And if you're wondering why we added that weird month integer column, it's to help us sort once we're in Excel. So these months are out of order, right? We have month 1, month 10, month 11. Just do this. Okay, now we reordered them perfectly. So we just added a cumulative revenue per install field. Just gonna be revenue divided by the installs. And here's our beautiful chart. Sure, visually it's appealing, but the data behind it is so important. So I'll tell you that. We'll get into that now. So having this data and this analysis is so important because if your marketing department or your user acquisition team approaches you and says that cost per install are $2.70, you can say, okay, great. It'll take 1 year or 12 months for us to basically pay back that marketing expense. So this is completely invaluable and totally recommend having this in your tool belt. Thank you so much for joining today's session. Please continue to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.